Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the country's biggest stars and some of my favourite people, and a comedian who I've loved for over 3 decades. He's been performing around the world, not only in Liverpool, where he was born, and of course made his name. Stan Boardman, how lovely to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you, Alex, yes.
How are you doing, first of all? I mean, we've seen you on the TV over the last 40, maybe 50 years now. Are you still at it?
Yeah, I'm still at it, and funny enough, I was in Norwich yesterday at the showground with 3,000 people in this big building. So, yeah, and it went down really well. So, yes, and then it took me 4.5 hours to drive back to Liverpool.
That's the hard thing about show business, isn't it? That you get on and do your 45 minutes, but it can take you 10 times as long to get there. Does that get tiring?
I did an hour and a half, so the 45 minutes have gone now, so
right.
It seems as if they want a little bit more when they do these big shows, but I've got enough material to go on forever. It's a driving that gets us comedians and entertainers down, driving all over the place. We love it when we're on the stage, but it's a nightmare in the cafes and the stopping off at the motorways and up and down the roads and roadblocks and everything, you know. You can't get anywhere these days.
I'm going to ask you a question I should have probably asked later, but how do you remember it all? When you stand on a stage and you've got 90 minutes ahead of you and no script, where does it come from?
Well, I think you do actually have a script in your head. Well, you'd have a skeleton of one, and I tend to work better that way rather than have something that is set in stone. I'm all over the place with the show, so sometimes when I get up there, I start from the end and go back to the beginning, or start in the middle and go from either side. So it's sort of I don't know. It works better for me that way than just having a script that is sort of you know what's coming next, and you sort of like automatic pilot. I'm not on automatic pilot because I'm ready for anything that would happen in this show. So if you really go on automatic pilot and something happens, you tend to lose track of where you are with it.
Let's go back to the beginning and talk about you as a boy. Of course, Liverpool was the place that you're so synonymous with. Did you sort of up the ante with your accent to make that your gimmick, or is that really the person you are? Because Liverpool is so associated with you.
Yeah, I couldn't change my accent, and I've never tried to change it. When I go to certain places, though, sort of up Newcastle, and they've got a great accent, and I sort of try to round off words when I'm up there so that they can understand it. But 30 or 40 years ago, it was a little bit different. Now everybody's sort of, the Geordie language is in vogue with the Devon and Cornwall accents in vogue, but years ago the Scottish accent, it was people didn't listen at all because accents were so hard to listen to, but because of the coverage with television and Sky and Big Brother and all them sort of programs, we've tend to sort of train our voices to be able to cope with these different accents. So when I was, yes, Scousers say certain words that the rest of the country find funny, and that's where I got most of my act with the Germans, because I told one German joke, I think it was in Carlisle, and the next minute everybody in the audience went Germans, and I didn't think that was anything wrong with that, because everyone in Liverpool said Germans,
Right.
And then I thought, well, I'll throw in a few more gags in, because if I got a laugh saying Germans, then I'll throw curtains in. And then the next minute was skating boards. People tend to sort of laugh at them, so there's no joke, but they're just laughing at your accents. And I did the summertime special with Val Doonican down south. If you remember the summertime specials, and there's a big marquee tent with about 4,000 people in, and it went out every Saturday in the summer. And another one called Seaside Special. I told a joke about a skating board. Well, 4,000 people all said skating board, so I kept that going, So, and afterwards, Val was laughing his head off and said he mimicked me, the skating board, and he got a laugh.
Yeah. But let's start at the beginning. You mentioned the Germans, and of course, the war was a huge impact on your life and a defining moment in your career too. It's amazing how the two have gone hand in hand, haven't they?
Yeah, it wasn't planned really. We got bombed out when I was 3.5 in a shelter in the centre of Liverpool, Kirkdale. And we used to have to run into the shelter every night as soon as the sirens were going, and then stay there all night until the all clear sirens went off again. We did that for weeks, but one night we got bombed, and the blast blew the shelter down and killed most of the people in the shelter, including my brother, who was 6. Me and my mother were sitting next to each other, and I was sitting on a babysitter's knee, a girl called Mary Munro, who was at 14, and she was killed. So when the shelter fell on us, I think she probably protected me, and that's how I survived. My mother finished up in hospital. She had all concussion, her head was all cut and everything, and my baby sister, who was only 11 or 12 months at the time, my mother had all of her, so she protected her. But my brother, unluckily, he's sick. He must have been sitting on his own and took the full blast of the bricks falling on him. And all the people in the street who were on the far side of the shelter, they were all killed, including the Munro family.
I know you're incredibly young. Do you actually remember that day?
I always remember the sirens, which would put the wind up anybody.
Yeah.
You know, you can still hear them now when the fire brigade goes. You know, the station. They're the same sounds.
Right.
Then the drones of the airplanes, and I remember people in the shelter saying, "Oh, that's all right. That's one of ours." They could tell which was a German airplane and which was an English airplane,
right.
A British airplane, by the sounds of the drones of the engines. So they would be sitting there, and they'd be saying, "Oh, but all right, that's one of ours," and everybody was relieved. And then we could hear the bangs going. And the other thing I remember was sitting on a slate on a bomb site where someone had dug me out the shelter. I think it must be an ARP warden or somebody, and put me on a slate, and then went in to get other people out. And I remember just sitting there, and the sun just coming up, and looking round, smoke, and no houses about, and grit in my teeth.
Wow.
And I'll never forget that whenever I get a little bit of sand or grit in my teeth, it goes back to that particular night.
Yeah.
And that's I think what happens, you always remember stuff that's traumatic. And if you fall off a bike or someone smacks you in the head with a brick or something like that, you remember them things, And I suppose it was a big effect on me, that.
And I suppose you're never the same again. Your mother in that house is always going to be thinking about that, even if you're not.
It's terrible because when we've lost my brother and we've lost the house, and my mother's in hospital, unconscious, and they find me in the morgue with my brother. So I must have been sort of. I think them days, they were, when you think about it, there was 2,000 or 3,000 people who were killed on that night. What the hospital would have been, and them days, there's only about 3 or 4 hospitals about 4 or 5 ambulances, and about 20 nurses. So it must have been horrendous on that night when everybody started bringing in people who were injured or dying, and where to put them. And I believe that they were all over the hospital, up the alleyways. And the people who were killed, they had the names of the roads where they were found, and the houses and the shelters all lying along the wards with a cardboard plaque saying Morley Street or Backcastle Street.
Wow.
And people come along then to try to identify who the loved ones were. And my uncle, who was 14, had come along to find me, because he went to the house and it wasn't there. Shaz wasn't there. Then he went to Stanley Hospital, which was only about a mile away, half a mile away, to look for me. Anyway, he found me and found me mum and in the hospital. And that was it. So my dad was in the army. He was in the Royal Artillery, but he was in Woolwich, and they were sort of protecting London. And I often wonder what it was like when he got the telegram, or when was told that you get back to Liverpool, you're on leave, and but your house is gone and your son's been killed, and I just wonder him sitting on that train for a day, because them days all the disruption. It'd probably take him 1 or 2 days to get back from London, and so be walking, get out of Lime Street Station and walking along Scotland Road to Kirkdale Road, seeing all the Blitz in the houses and waiting to see what he was going to see when he got to the street and get there, and there's nothing there. Then he has to go and find us in the hospitals, and So then we had to try and build that. My mum and dad had to try and build their life from nothing. You couldn't have gone any lower than that. And the strange thing about it, my dad had got 2 weeks leave, and he stayed over, still trying to find us houses and accommodation, and he got arrested for staying over his leave, and the police took him back to London.
Wow.
MPs took him back. So we were left on our own again, and we finished up getting billeted with a family in Dovecot, hiding, because them days he was, I think, because all the homeless people got put up by people who were probably getting paid by the government to take people in. So we had one room for about 3 or 4, 6 months, and then we moved into the council house where we lived, which was a proper street, nice house. And then my dad a couple of years later, my dad come out of the army, and that's when we had to pick ourselves. My mum and dad had to pick themselves up.
I guess they say out of all that adversity comes humour and positivity. Can you remember how long it was before you could all laugh together again as a family, and that became normal?
My mother had the greatest sense of humour.
Right.
And we were 10. My mum had 10 kids. She'd lost 3. 1 in the bombing and 2 before that. And I had 6 sisters. And we lived in a 2-bedroomed house, and it was fun. It was Mum was laughing all the time, joking, and she worked hard. At them days they didn't have a big fridge or anything like that, so every day she was shopping, and we had to meet her every day with the bags, and she'd walk about half a mile back to the house.
Wow.
And that's how it was. We had to meet our mothers every day, 4 o'clock, to pick up the shopping.
Ah, fantastic. And then we moved forward, and you didn't want to be a comedian, you wanted to be a footballer, didn't you? That was your big passion.
Well, I think when I was in this council, when we were in the council house in the street, it was all lads there. All we had to do was play with the ball. We didn't have much money. We played with the tennis ball without the fur on it, obviously.
Right.
But we'd kick this ball around forever, and I suppose the coordination of kicking that ball and nothing else to do. I mean, there was no television. There was nothing in the house that you could want to stay in for. So everything was outside on the street, playing hopscotch and playing tick, and all the games that we used to play them days. I don't know whether the kids do that now, because they all seem to be sitting on computers. But we were sort of out from school. Then at 4 o'clock we'd be out in the streets until it went dark. And it was hide and seek. All the games that in the streets were fantastic, and that made us fitter. Cricket would be in the summer. We have a lamppost and a little cricket bat that someone's dad had made out of a piece of wood and a ball, and that was us for 4 to 5 hours. And then the football season had started. Then we'd be playing football. And then we'd go down to the local picture house watching the cowboy films, and we'd all be playing cowboys and Indians. So it was all quite different than today, I think.
Yeah, I'm not quite as old as you, but I hold my head in my hands when I see these kids walking around with their mobile phones, looking around fields at imaginary characters, trying to zap them on Pokemon. It seems like we've lost perspective of what fun is.
Yeah, you often think of that now. And I mean, I've got grandchildren now, and they're lovely kids, but we've banned them from in restaurants and cafes because there's nothing worse than seeing a family all sitting there looking at their iPads in restaurants and no interaction, and the kids haven't got a conversation in them.
Right.
Because they're all looking at the texting their mates, or they're playing games with their mates, and you ask them to put them down and they start moaning and crying. So I don't know where it's going.
I think one of the reasons there's so many comedians from Liverpool is because you are so articulate, you're so funny, and also it's a melting pot. When you think of the history of the people who came to Liverpool and stayed there, you were ahead of the game in a way, weren't you, with sort of multiculturalism and bringing people together?
Chinese friends, and we had Chinese and Barbados friends and all that. I mean, Liverpool was a mountain pot. We had the biggest Chinese population in outside of China in Liverpool, because the ships do come down the Mersey, they have cooks on and all that, and they said, oh, jump ship, or got thrown off the ship, and they'd stay in Liverpool, and then all of a sudden we've got Chinatown, and Chinatown, and then we've got Toxteth, when everyone come over from Trinidad and Tobago and all places like that, and they all mixed in. It was great.
And then we move forward to comedy, and of course your big break on Opportunity Knocks, and then of course The Comedians. That's where we first saw you on TV. When was the first time you stood on a stage?
Well, funny enough, I used to live in Dovecourt, and the strangest thing, and you mentioned him, Ken Dodd. Ken Dodd used to deliver. His dad had a coal business, and that was only in Knotty Ash, and there is a place called Knotty Ash, and people don't believe there is, but there's no Jambutti mines there, but there is a place called Knotty Ash, and that was only about half a mile from where I lived, and he'd come along the street in a van, and not many people had cars and vans, but he had a van, and he'd have Aunt Sally, which is like a liquid soap, and he'd have bleach. And he's coming to our house. My mum would buy a bottle of bleach off and a bottle of Aunt Sally.
Wow.
And, that was to clean the steps and clean the floors. Aunt Sally was like a sort of a disinfectant thing. And he had a little bag. And he must have been about 20, 25, 30, I don't know. And my dad said, I saw you on the Huyton UDC club in Huyton. And he'd be there, with his teeth.
Yeah. And
my dad said, tell him a joke. And the first joke Ken Dodd told me, in my house in Huyton, in Dovecourt, right outside, I can still remember sitting by the gate, and he's got the two bottles in his hand. He says, I'm the only one in Liverpool who can eat an apple through a tennis racket. And that was the first. And, and I'd never seen his act or nothing like that until I went to Blackpool and saw him in Blackpool, and I thought he was fantastic. He used to hold an audience. It was brilliant.
Do you think there's ever been a greater front-of-cloth comedian? I mean, his timing, his pure tenacity, and at 87 still be selling out these huge theatres is remarkable.
Yeah, he is, and he appeals to everybody as well, and he's one of the cleanest comedians as well. He doesn't have to swear, and there's nothing that you could take your kids to see him, and he'll entertain them. His pantomimes are great. His Diddy men are wonderful in the pantos and stuff like that, I'm a big fan of Ken.
And then we go forward to TV, and of course your most famous legendary appearance was on Des O'Connor. Have you embraced that now? Because I watched it again last night, and by 2016 standards, it's just funny and not outrageous. But of course, back in the day, it was, and it got you huge press, didn't it?
Well, it did actually. I don't know why, because it was. I still don't understand it, but it was. I'm glad I did it, and because it still, as you said, it still stands up today. I get so many. Even if I go to a club now, people who haven't seen me, they say, "Oh, let's Google them," and I don't even put that on Google or whatever it is, or iTunes, whatever it is. Yeah. It's there, and it'll be there forever, I suppose.
It will. And it is still very funny. And when you did that Fokker thing, did they know anything about it, and how did Des react afterwards?
Well, funny enough, I did about 4 or 5 Des O'Connor shows, and the funny thing about it, everybody only remembers that one.
Yeah.
So there must be a sort of must be something there that gets into people's heads and forgets other stuff. And that's why people don't remember jokes, but they remember catchphrases.
Right.
And I think, it's even the best joke in the world. People won't remember it of a comedian, but they'll remember, Frank Carson. It's the way I tell them. You know what I mean? And
we all got to have a gimmick.
Forsyth, nice to see you nice, but they don't remember any other joke or any gag what they did. And Carson used to do an hour's gags. I probably remember only 2 gags, but when you say, "Who's this?" It's the way I tell them. It's a strange thing. A catchphrase is more important than the joke.
Is it tough getting older when you see so many? Last week I spoke to Jim Bowen and we were talking about how many comedians we've lost, and there really is very few greats left now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, everyone's got to move on, haven't we? I mean, even when we were young, there was Arthur Askey and people like that, and the Goons and all them sorts of stuff. Yeah, there seems to be like sort of... at this moment in time, the old comedians are just dropping like flies. So, hang on, just let me put my pulse.
Yeah.
I'm still here.
And are you doing well? Are you keeping well?
I'm still fit as a fiddle. I mean, a lot of the lads who, the comedians, they were sort of like the darts players. They were drinking pints of lager and drinking beer and smoking and all that. Yeah. Thank goodness I've never smoked, but I've kept myself quite fit over the years, so hopefully there's a few years left in me. But yes, all good things come to an end.
And then we look at your comedy show now, and I was looking at clips again last night on YouTube, and you still have a ferocious ability to deliver a gag. You seem to still love it.
Do you know what? Because I had a very, very bad start in life.
Yeah.
I had to go into a home when I was about 5 or 6 because of the situation that we were in with the bomb and all that. And then I went into another one where my mother couldn't cope with us because she had too many kids. So, so I don't know. I think you bring all this along with you.
Right.
You carry it through life, and you either, sort of pack in or, go nuts, or you just carry on with it. But I've had a really fantastic life, and I've been a pipefitter welder. I've been a lorry driver. I've done about 30, 40 jobs. I've been in the army, did my national service, and this comedians thing, standing up on stage and telling jokes and making people laugh and getting paid for it, is probably the best job in the world. I went to Norwich the other day, and I'm on the road for 4.5 hours, and I'm passing wagons and lorries, and I'm thinking to myself, them poor fellas there, I've got to drive that distance every day.
Yep.
And then park the wagon up, go to sleep, get up next morning, and drive again. And, for me to stand on the stage for an hour, I would never swap that for the world. And I wouldn't get home till 7 o'clock at night. You look at these things and think, bloody hell, how lucky I am.
Yeah.
But when you get these young lads who are just starting off now, who are only 18, 19, 20, who are comedians now, they haven't lived that life.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll cope well with it. But they might get depressed, they might be miserable, or something, but they shouldn't do.
Yeah, it's perspective, isn't it? Congratulations on everything. It's so great to talk to you, and I wish you well. Just as you look out the window at the moment, there aren't any Fockers passing, are there?
Well, do you want? You can hear one now. Hang on, listen. There's one just come, but it's one of ours.
Is it a little one or a big one?
I don't know who it is, but I said if I ever do the Des O'Connor show, I won't tell them jokes about Fokker wolves again. I'll tell a joke about a British aeroplane. The only trouble is it's got a Wankel engine. And I'm pretty certain I'll make a joke about that.
Did he have grace afterwards? Did he find it funny? Because in the chair he found it hysterical, although I can appreciate when you're live on air it can be concerning.
I think the thing is that, things have changed now. them days, there was no... in actual fact, I wasn't swearing on the Des O'Connor show.
No.
Here's an airplane called a fucker wolf, and I think it's because of Liverpool accent. It comes over as swearing.
Yes.
But, you know...
But you knew what you were doing. It's a great gag. Come on.
Oh, it's a gag, isn't it? It's a gag. It's an old gag. I mean, it's not... Well, I never promoted it, but it's as an old gag. There's a different ways of doing it. That was the way I did it, and I think it came over. I mean, if you heard the audience laughing on there, that was genuine.
Wonderful.
There was no canned laughter like it is now.
Yeah.
People forget that Freddie Starr was on that show.
Oh, was he?
And then the next person to come on was Oliver Reed. So
Christ.
you should really watch him on there.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
We become good friends. I went to his house in Guernsey, me and my mate. And my mate said, I've got to get up early in the morning. He said to catch the first plane out of Guernsey. And Ollie said, we're staying, we're having a drink. And Ollie had handcuffed him to the bed.
Oh, Christ. Stan Boardman, it's so lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope to see you live soon. You're one of our greatest legends and funny people. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thanks very much.